Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spherical Chicken in a Vacuum. Today, we are going to speak again about the publication process and open access journals. If you remember, last time we spoke about how a paper is produced and published. So, the scientists write the paper is then sent to a journal, scientific journal. The journal picks an editor. The editor then decides if the paper needs to be rejected immediately or if it should go peer review. If they decide that it should be peer reviewed, they send this paper to a committee of reviewers. Then there is this reviewing process that can go on for a while editors reviewers ask for some changes in the paper, and the authors try to do their best to improve the quality of the paper. And then finally, the paper can be again accepted or rejected after the peer review process. But I didn't speak about one powerful entity that is behind this publication process, which is the publisher itself. Publishers can be private companies, publishers can be associations, publishers can be even universities in some cases. And especially if it's a private company, of course, they are after the money, so they want to have compensation in exchange for their services. And that's where another entity appears in this drawing, which is the institution that the scientists belong to. It can be a company, can be an association again, can be a university, a research center, whatever. And there are mainly two possibilities. I mean, if the publishers requires for a sort of payment, there are two possibilities. One of which is that the institution pays like an annual subscription to the journal, and this makes the the papers, the manuscripts, the articles available for anyone that has the subscription. So the payment to the service of the publisher is through annual subscriptions that are not related directly to the specific article we are speaking about. This is like one-time fee. Okay, and it's not even you can still publish even if you don't pay the annual subscription. It doesn't really matter because the publisher is interested in making the people that read the article pay for it. In the other system, the authors need to take care of what is called a publication fee, so that is specific to the article. They need to pay some amount of money to the publisher, and that money usually is given to them by the institution or by some government or by, well, there are many possibilities actually. Can also be some sort of contract between the institution and the publisher that so that the institution makes a one-time payment every year and covers all the expenses for all the publications of their scientists. But the idea is that in this system you pay for publishing. Okay, these are the two main categories, and it's really difficult to speak about to generalize the concepts when there are so many scientific publishing groups around the world. And these are just a selection of the ones I remember or I met or I found in my emails, and there are many more. Some of them are specific for some scientific topics, some of them are generalistic, let's say. Some of them only publish books. Some of them are from universities, companies, associations, blah blah, etc., etc. There's no need to discuss about every single case, but please keep in mind that rules change depending on the publisher. And so basically, there are two routes that we can follow to publish from paper. One is the subscription model, in which the authors publish for free, actually, but give up their copyright. That goes to the publisher, and the article is made available only to people that pay the subscription, either because their institution paid for them or they pay the annual fee, or because they bought the access to one single paper at a time, which is crazily expensive. It can be easily €40 for 40 US dollars for one paper. Okay. The other model, the so-called open access, the authors pay the publication cost, which is much more than the real cost involved with the online storage of the paper itself. And retain the copyright, and the articles are made freely available to everyone, which is the model that a lot of scientists prefer nowadays. And there are many types of open access and rules for open access. There is the embargo rule, etc., etc. I'll try to simplify the open access and split it in three main models. One of which is the gold open access, in which the authors need to pay to the journal to actually to publish the paper. The payment is not made at the submission. Usually, it's made when the paper when the article is finally published. In the second model, which is the diamond open access, there is no cost for publication, and this is more the model followed by universities and associations. And then there is one third model, which is called the green open access, in which the authors made their research available online for free. So there is no cost involved, but it's on the shoulders of the authors themselves. Okay. So this idea of the open access exploded in recent years, and so much that now you can find in this website, you can find a list of open access journals and articles, and you can see that there are a lot of journals, like more than 20,000 journals, and more than half of them don't ask you to pay any APCs, so publishing fees, which sounds good, sounds promising. More than half of the journals publish your work basically for free in open access mode. But then you just go into this database and scroll the database and look at journals, and you will see that there's a lot of journals that are not on Web of Science, for example, or that are not very strict, and they seem like a little bit scummy, and the quality of papers in many of these journals is not very high. Okay, this is my opinion. Just go there in that database, search by yourself, see what pops up, read the papers, and tell me. Tell me if you find that the average quality of the papers that are on the most of these open access journals are up to the standards. Tell me. I'm curious to hear your opinion. My opinion is that in most cases, the quality is terrible and it's close to scientific garbage. Okay? Now, I'm not blaming open access, I'm blaming the possibilities that open access gave. I'm blaming people trying to take advantage of this new publication model. And things maybe will adjust over time, but for now, a lot of open access journals don't live up to the standards. Okay, again, my opinion. Okay, but even if we speak about like high famous publishers and famous journals, there is something to say about them. This is a very very simple way to put this, but I split scientific journals in three categories: the high tier scientific journals, things like Nature, Science, etc., that are extremely selective. Even good scientists struggle to publish on these journals. It's not something you do every month. Many scientists never publish on these kind of journals, or just publish a couple of times in their whole scientific career. Then there is a middle tier of scientific journals that are high quality, renommed, a little selective, and it's not easy to publish on them, and you need to struggle a little bit. And then there are low tier scientific journals in which publishing is relatively easy. Okay, this has been the standard, more or less. There are different tiers. It doesn't mean that the paper on a low tier scientific journal is shitty. or that all papers in high scientific journals are masterpieces. We should evaluate the articles for their own content and not by the box they've been put into. So it doesn't mean that nature papers are always good, nice, and correct and valuable. And it doesn't mean that something published on a low-level journal doesn't have any scientific value. But with open access, something changed. Something changed in the way that there is a fourth group here in the middle that is made of accessible open access scientific journals, in which publishing is not very challenging, is relatively easy. And of course, there is high tiers open access scientific journals, middle tier open access scientific journals, but there's a concerning amount of accessible open access scientific journals, which is not by default a bad thing, because it should make science more available. That is something we are all concerned about. But but quality standards and are also a big concern when it comes to scientific publishing, right? So let's take one example. Let's take scientific reports from by Springer Nature. I was very critical about scientific reports. I consider it to be the trash bin of the Springer Nature group. I published on scientific reports, I think, a couple of times, but things that could not be published anywhere else, which is a pretty low standard for a scientific journal of the Springer Nature group, right? And if we have a look at the numbers, in 2023, published almost 18,000 papers. The average cost is about 2,590 US dollars plus taxes, which makes a revenue of 46 million US dollars, which is a huge amount of money. You can understand that scientific reports lives by the name of Nature. People think about the Nature group and their high standard, high quality standard. They are renowned and famous journals. So they also associate scientific reports to Springer Nature, to the other Springer Nature. And this is how people approach scientific reports. They try to send their articles to higher tier scientific journals, and editors tell them that that paper cannot be accepted, but they can publish it on scientific reports, maybe. Okay, so most of the, in my idea at least, most of the fame of the fortune of scientific reports is thanks to the fact that it is in the big basket of Springer Nature. People would probably not be so happy to pay a subscription, annual subscription to read scientific reports. But that's why scientific reports works in the other system as an open access. So you pay to publish, and by paying to publish, they can make 46 million US dollars a year. And of course, this raises like some concern in the scientific community. And as always, we are split into groups. There's the people pro accessible open access. They say that they make science more accessible and gives everyone a place to publish their papers, which is a good thing because there's no gatekeeping and things are made available, even if they are not extremely high quality or, how can I say, innovative, like something extraordinary that high tier scientific journals would like to publish. Okay. The other side, there's people against this accessible open access journal, and they say they make a profit out of the desperation and pressure to publish. And both groups are right. It really depends on the situation. It really depends on the journal. It really depends on the publisher. It really depends on the editor. There's truth in both views in my eyes. Okay, but something happened recently. And this news was covered by Research Watch. Retraction watch. Sorry, retraction watch. And as you can see, Web of Science put mega journals Cureus and Helion on hold, so they are being suspended from their databases due to concerns about the quality of their articles. In particular, Cureus is a journal of medical science by Springer Nature, and Helion is a general topic scientific journal from Elsevier. And they have their own acceptance rate, and Cureus has one of the highest acceptance rates I ever saw in my life, which is more than 50%. While Helion is a little bit more selective with about 37%. I thought scientific reports to be the trash bin. As I told you, my idea was that scientific reports was the easiest point of access for scientific for Springer Nature, but it actually, I think, has an acceptance rate of about 30%, which make Curios something much more accessible, let's say. And about Helion, I found this concern online that the real acceptance rate of Helion is actually much higher because Helion often rejects the paper, so it's recorded as a rejection, so it doesn't go in the acceptance rate, and asks the authors to resubmit it again after reviewing. So it's instead of being a like major review, they reject it and ask for a resubmission that they count as a new submission again. I don't know if this is true. This comes from Cell Onion, that is I think on X. You can go and check there. It sounds like it's a possibility. I'm not really sure about it. So these two journals have been suspended due to concerns about basically their peer review process and the quality of the articles they publish. The problem is, again, that this comes from a private company that is acting as a judge for science, a judge for scientific community. A private company that, by default, by definition, has its own interest. So it's true that these mega journals are a easy way to make money with high acceptance rates, etc., and they live thanks to the fame and fortune of the other journals of the same publisher. So it sounds like it's a they are money making machines with low interest for the quality. On the other side, again, there are some concerns that a private company acts as a judge for the scientific community and decides what can be considered and what cannot be considered about the publication about your articles, etc. It's a very complicated topic. It's not so easy to decide to pick a side in this situation. And of course, again, we should judge the articles from their content and not the containers, not the boxes where we put the articles. That is something we should keep in mind. Also, we should, as a scientific community, be a little bit more concerned about our standards of quality and maybe make our own standards, try to put our own controls instead of relying on private companies. Well, that is up to discussion. I just wanted to update you on this situation and make you understand what makes open access such a big concern in modern publishing. And I'm not even speaking about completely open access publishers like MDPI and Frontiers. I will discuss about them in the future because there's a lot to say about the standards of quality of completely open access publishers. And I think this is more than enough for today, and see you next time, and thank you for joining. Goodbye.